Hello. I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and she crossed the Delaware on a slice of toast. Dana Perino, La Five.
La.
Something different. The world's getting hotter, and it's not global warming. It's political tension driven by emotion. Now we worry if civility is dead. Well, is it? The good news, most of America isn't what's on TV. The shouting on camera is what attracts the camera in the first place, so you see more of it. However, it may not be a bad idea to lower the temperature. Why not a peace movement, or at least a keep the peace movement? To kick it off, let's admit one key truth. Almost all people who disagree with each other think that they're the good guys. A smart man, Norm Macdonald, once tweeted, today actually, the idiot sees the world as good versus evil. The cynic sees the world as evil versus evil. The truth that no one seems able to see is that the world is and has always been a battle of good versus good. So everyone who annoys you, they think they're right. But so do you, and that annoys them. The solution, understand first that we live our lives with different filters, and these filters clash. Still, we all want the same thing, and that's good, healthy lives for us and everyone. During Hurricane Harvey, we saw deplorables and non-deplorables alike saving lives. So what if we looked at this current political climate as a natural event and lent a hand? So what do you do in hard times? You help, you compromise, and when possible, you always forgive. Isn't it a time for a peace movement begun by conservatives? After all, you're the guys in charge. Now, you may not get anything in return. If someone thinks you're evil, all you can do through your actions is prove them wrong. If it doesn't work, at least you know that you have done right rather than simply be right. Boom. Hey, so Juan, I want to go to you first. I believe that if we were going to create some kind of reduction in hostilities, it's got to come from conservatives, because you can't expect it from the people who are out of power. When you are out of power, it is almost natural not to play nice because you are upset that you're out of power. So it's more like the responsibility of the people, conservatives, supporters of Trump, to extend the hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in fact, I'm sort of thrilled that you would say this. I mean, I really appreciate it, Greg, because it seems to me that there's so much animosity in the air, and everybody is throwing something. It's beyond spitballs at each other at this point, and suspect of their motives. So listening to what you said about Norm Macdonald saying it's good versus good, I was like, you know, sometimes I think people who don't have good in mind simply want to line their pockets or want more power for themselves, or trying to advantage their friends, are doing business. Now, obviously, at the moment, I have very strong feelings about separating children from families, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to deny those feelings, and I don't want to be shut up in expressing my feelings, but I do think that we are out of control in terms of the mockery, the bullying, the kind of attitude that says, you know what, you're not worthy, you're not an American if you're not playing with my team.
You know, Jesse, the counter argument to this is that screw civility. They've made politics personal, so now it's our turn. How do you get out of that thing where you go like, okay, I'm willing to be civil even if you aren't? And it could go for either side.
Well, it's tough to kind of unilaterally lay down your weapons in politics, because it's such a cutthroat industry. It was just, what, a year ago when Steve Scalise was shot by a Bernie bro, and everybody around this table said, listen, we need to lower the temperature, tone down the rhetoric, and unite as a country. And a year later, here we are in the exact same spot where it's very, very vicious. And I think both sides need to tell their own people to chill a little bit and get back to basics. We're all Americans. The thing we did yesterday with our heritage, we have more in common than we have different than each other. So that's a good thing. But at the same time, there is a difference when Trump retweets a video of himself body slamming a CNN logo and some of the things that have gone on the left. I mean, it was in the inauguration that the left firebombed a limousine. We've had Black Lives Matter people chant death to cops. We've had Antifa smash store windows. Hollywood has fantasized about Trump child rape and beheadings. Nancy Pelosi herself said the tax cuts were literally going to kill people. So I remember back in the Obama administration, a rodeo clown dressed up as President Obama, and he lost his job immediately. And now a Senate staffer for a Democratic senator yelled "F you" to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, as he was passing by, and she kept her job. So, you know, I'm willing to listen and I'm willing to say when my side is wrong, but the other side needs to be accountable too. And right now there's a division in the Democratic Party. What are the Trump resistance tactics going to be? You have establishment politicians like Schumer and Pelosi who know how to win elections. You know, Democrats win when they're moderate or pretend to be moderate, and they get it and they know when to condemn. But then the activists, where the energy are, they're okay and they want to confront people in the street. They like the mob action. That excites them. And they're going to have to struggle with that internal turmoil all the way through 2020, because right now the division is on that side and it's getting pretty ugly.
Yeah, as you know, Kimberly, I am not practicing religious person, but we know that the Christ-like thing is to turn the other cheek. So when Jesse talks about this side that is more hostile, the reaction should be to turn the other cheek. But do you see that happening when it gets more heated?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's a very good discussion, a healthy discussion to try to, you know, create some kind of unity, some civility, you know, on both sides. I think it's not helpful to finger point and say, well, they're worse than this side, et cetera. Like, everyone has to accept their own personal responsibility for their discourse, their rhetoric, their conduct, everyone, including the President of the United States. And then, you know, we lead individually by example. But, you know, what I don't like is the threats of violence, to have people harmed, physical, you know, violence, or turning away a family, saying they can't eat at a place, or things like that, and just taking it, you know, too far. It's okay to have, you know, healthy discussions and disagreements about political philosophy or ideology. But when it comes to making threats like that of physical harm or showing just total disrespect, you know, I just don't, it's unbecoming. It's conduct unbecoming.
Yeah. Do you, Dana, the bottom, this is an eternal conflict that, no one in war thinks they're the bad guy. So if everyone thinks they're right, that they're the good guys, how do you get the person who thinks they're right to also see that you might be right? Isn't that the answer for this eternal question?
I think that it is a lot about personal relationships. Remember, during the Obama administration, it was always surprising that he waited so long to play golf with John Boehner.
Yeah.
The things that what a personal relationship can do. And there was a couple of times, I think, that the Democrats came to have dinner at the White House and things like that in this current administration. But turn the other cheek has become replaced by counterpunching.
Yeah.
And it's successful.
Yeah.
So do I see it changing? Not necessarily, unless people realize, like, whoa, we are really close to unraveling what we have built. And to me, civility is a choice. So every time you decide to say something, and if you're privileged to be on television, to have a chance to give your opinions about something or debate something with somebody, you have a choice in what you say. And I also don't want to be responsible for other people's words. So policing your own side is, there's something to be said about that, but I also feel like that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
So it does start with the self. The other thing I'd point out is Selena Zito, the columnist who wrote a great book, but now I can't remember, but it's about sort of the Trump's America, like who was voting for Trump and why. She wrote a piece today about the death of these civil society organizations. We talked about the Freemasons the other day. Things like that, where you had organizations where people could belong, and nobody wants to really belong to anything anymore except for to their side.
Right.
And that leaves a real dearth of the possibility of getting people together.
Juan, there are people that believe calls for civility are incompatible with free speech. It's like, okay, whenever I come in and I march and my voice is loud, you're calling that incivility, when in fact free speech matters when it's incivil. Speech matters when it's incivil. I can see that point. Like, you know, it's like you don't want to hear the loud noises, but that's the only time you listen. But is that actually allowing for too much?
No, what are you talking about? This is America. I mean, you should be able.
But going to somebody's house, like going to somebody's house.
No, look. I mean, you have to open your eyes to reality. There are people who want to protest and have a legitimate grievance, which is about the children or some of the other policies of this administration. The question is, how do you handle it? I mean, you know, part of this has to do with the breakdown of facts. And people saying, well, I didn't hear about that. That's not a fact I'm familiar with, and that kind of thing. And so people have to get this straight. You know, I saw a poll, knowing that we were going to discuss this, and the poll says that since President Trump's been in office, now 67%, I think it's two-thirds, including two-thirds of Republicans, say the tone and the stability in the country has gone down. So Trump, I mean, he has to take some responsibility, but that doesn't mean that the left has to then say, oh, so since he's doing that and acting and saying lock her up and all that kind of stuff, that we have to behave that way. I do think there are politics involved, and I think there's
chanting threatening things. And to what you were saying earlier, and you've said this before, sometimes you assume the other side has evil intentions, when in fact they're either misguided or they just have a different political philosophy. And President Trump in the beginning, I used to think if anybody could work with President Trump, it's the Democrats. And he showed that. I think he went against Ryan and McConnell and went with Pelosi and Schumer when it came to DACA in the beginning. He's willing to reach across the aisle. Right now, just that gulf seems really deep.
As you know, Dana, as a Jewish Native American, I think one of the big mistakes in incivility is labeling people, and I think we noticed that even in the, primaries, people calling each other rhinos and things like that was like a thing that like. The division wasn't just left or right.
Nope.
The division was within each separate division.
And it was swallow it. You know, you are going to have to accept that being nice didn't work. So this is what we're going to do. It's a new world. And now we're talking about that there are dangers of incivility because it could lead to possible violence. I mean, these haven't gotten violent yet, though I would argue that the burning of the carcass on the front porch, like you're going to think that you're being attacked. At that point, what do you do? Like it could spiral out of control. We have such a gift of being able to live in freedom and with liberty and justice for all here in America that you have to work to preserve it. Do not lose this chance to have this really great, wonderful country continue.
It's true, because if you let it get away from you, you know, and you see things like spiraling now, and it feels like dangerous times in terms of just the incendiary rhetoric, the actions, the violent protests, and, you know, nobody wins with that.
So as I say, listen. You know, if there was one thing, listen. The other person has something to say, and they deserve to be heard.
Absolutely. All right, a huge win for President Trump. We're back on that hamster wheel. All right, as the Supreme Court upholds his travel ban, we'll break it down next.
A big win for President Trump's America First agenda as the Supreme Court upholds his travel ban in a 5-4 ruling. The policy restricts travel to the U.S. for foreign nationals from North Korea, Venezuela, and 5 Muslim-majority countries. The administration argues the move is needed for national security reasons. The president celebrating the victory at the White House earlier.
Just coming out, a tremendous success, a tremendous victory for the American people and for our Constitution. This is a great victory for our Constitution. We have to be tough, and we have to be safe, and we have to be secure. At a minimum, we have to make sure that we vet people coming into the country. We know who's coming in. We know where they're coming from.
Okay, big ruling today, 5-4, the Supreme Court upholding the travel restriction, the ban, Jesse, as it relates to certain countries. And again, this was, you know, tailored and sort of recrafted again when there was opposition to begin with. Sort of your thoughts on this?
What was this, 2.0 or 3.0?
Exactly.
It's the watered down version. Well, whatever, it was upheld, and I think everybody knew it would be upheld. Remember why this happened. San Bernardino shooting. This couple went overseas to some sketchy places, came back, had inflammatory rhetoric on their Facebook page, were not vetted appropriately, and even their neighbors were suspicious, but they didn't want any Islamophobia blowback, and then, you know, many people slaughtered in San Bernardino. So this was a temporary pause to create an extreme vetting process. And this is not a Muslim targeted thing. 9 out of these 10 countries, these aren't even the biggest Muslim populated countries. There's Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria. This is extremely targeted. And these countries don't even have proper identification. They don't share information. The airports are chaos. There's no knowing who's coming overseas and into our airports. So I think this is...
You just described LaGuardia, Newark, and JFK airports.
I know. That's why I only fly private. But also not true.
Man of the people.
But it does show how important these Supreme Court justice nominations are and why Trump is so heralded by people on the right for the Gorsuch pick.
All right, so Dana, okay, so this, something was like fraught with a lot of political pushback, back and forth. They recrafted it, redrafted it to make something that could pass constitutional muster. They came out with a 5-4 decision. What do you think here in terms of the communications and the messaging, and where do we go from here?
I think that if the 3.0 version had been issued rather than the first two, then there probably never would have been a lawsuit. And I actually think I'm surprised this was not a 9-0 decision. One of the things that's very interesting and could be precedent setting, but we'll have to see, is this question of whether a person's tweets or comments before they're president, so as a candidate, before they're president, if they can be actually a part of a case and weigh in. Chief Justice Roberts says no. And I don't know if that will carry on to other cases, but there certainly will be other cases, and they'll try to reach back, not just for President Trump, but for future presidents or other congressmen or congresswomen. So I think that obviously a good win for the president. Probably didn't even need to go through all of this if they had just done it this way in the first place. It wouldn't have even been a case. But it's very interesting to me on that precedent-setting level of the president's tweets before he's a candidate don't matter.
All right. I thought that was actually the most fascinating point and aspect of the ruling, because there was a lot of discussion about that, Greg, and you heard in terms of different opinions throughout the country with justices ruling back over in Hawaii, et cetera, and talking about the inflammatory, incendiary rhetoric of a candidate Trump versus President Trump, and that having an impact, and sort of trying to tie back that language to say that's what would make it unconstitutional.
Well, I think that impacts the coverage, because a lot of the headlines read, U.S. court backs travel ban on Muslim majority countries. We do know that Venezuela is not Muslim majority, and we know that North Korea is not Muslim majority. In fact, that raises the question, how is Kim going to get to Mar-a-Lago if he is banned? Here's the problem that I have with it is. It's like, this is a problem for North Korea.
We'll have to send him the chocolate cake.
My problem with this whole ban is it doesn't violate any civil liberties. It's anti-terror, not anti-Muslim. The problem is it may not have any effect whatsoever. And the worst part is you may feel like that it has an effect, which then reduces the potential for doing something that really works. The issue here is terror. And this is not, this is a one club in the golf bag. In the golf course to fight terror. Another terrible analogy.
Par 6.
Par 6. You need cyber, you need borders, you need bioterror, you need techno-terror. I think focusing on these seven countries because they do not have proper procedure is smart, but it's a small piece, and I assume the administration knows that it's not nearly enough, but it's not what you think it is. It's not a blanket thing.
Okay. All right. So what do you make of the ruling and sort of the reasoning that the justices gave? As Dana said, she was thinking it could be a 9-0, but it turned out to be a 5-4 decision.
Well, it's not only 5-4, it's a highly divided court along partisan lines. So it was conservative justices who voted for the president. It was liberal justices who voted against him. And the dissents were very strong. Ruth Bader Ginsburg talked about a masquerade of national security concerns hiding, in fact, racial and religious hostility. Even the swing vote, or arguably the swing vote, Justice Kennedy said, yeah, I'm going to go along with the president on this, but you can't be out there making decisions based on religion or statements based on religion that would suggest that there is some discrimination taking place against any one faith in this country. And, Sandra Sotomayor said that basically the conservatives on the court were ignoring the facts, which is that the president said, we're going to keep all those Muslims out of here.
But it's 1/10 of there are 50 Muslim nations. This is 1/10 of 50 Muslim nations.
Well, I don't know how you get away from what the president explicitly said.
Well,
and I think that's why he lost in the Ninth Circuit. That's why he lost at the federal court level. And so now you get these guys who say, yeah, He has the authority as the president.
Right.
That's his constitutional right.
But it's not just...
But when you violate someone's constitutional right to religious freedom, that's a problem.
But it's not just Trump's constitutional authority. It's the executive branch's constitutional
45 Muslim countries are welcome to come in
that
here.
Authority.
I know, yeah, so it doesn't hold water there because the facts don't to back. You have to go on reality, the facts, not because, oh, the president said this when he was the candidate. Okay, President Trump campaigns in South Carolina ahead of key primaries, and another new sign that the blue wave is disappearing. Stay with us.
Turn down for what? Turn down for what? Baby, take control now. We can't even slow down.
President Trump firing up supporters at a South Carolina rally ahead of several key primaries today.
We're winning now, like we have not won before. We're winning with our military. We're winning on trade. We're defending our borders. The forgotten men and women of our country are forgotten no more. But the world is going to be a much safer place. And North Korea is going to be a much better place. And they've agreed to denuclearization.
And a good sign for Republicans. A new Gallup poll shows voter certainty for the midterms is historically low. 56% of Americans are absolutely certain they'll show up to the polls this November. That number significantly lower than in wave election years of 2006 and 2010. Dana, just starting with the Gallup situation. Usually midterms are low turnout traditionally, and that favors Republicans. And what do you make of that number?
Well, I guess if you're Republicans, you're encouraged by it, but I wouldn't take it to the bank. I mean, I think part of it is that this millennial voters, they are fairly interested.
The millennials are going to turn out?
Well, they say they will. It doesn't always turn out. But I just want to go back to one thing. In an off-election year, gubernatorial race in Virginia last November, more Republicans turn out to vote for Ed Gillespie than in the history of the Commonwealth, and he still loses by 9 points. So there is enthusiasm out there. It's hard to measure enthusiasm.
And Tim Kaine's way ahead of
Corey Stewart
in Virginia in the Senate race.
I have a feeling that President Trump will not be going to Virginia to do a rally for that race.
Well, yeah, see about that. Kimberly, what about the president's message? We are winning on this, on that, on this. Very positive. How do you think that's going to play?
It's a ping pong winning sensation back and forth. Winning here, winning there, winning everywhere. So look, he's good at firing up the base, right? When he does go and campaign and get out there for somebody, he's great. He's magic at a rally. It's where he sort of just recharges himself and gets out there and connects with the people in the movement and can kind of take himself away, I think, from some like the negative press and kind of own the show. That being the case, I mean, he's really pretty much the best campaigner out there. So if he wants to get these positive results, that means he's going to have to sort of spread himself out there, but in a targeted way. You don't want to spend too much time where there's such a big gap that it's not going to be beneficial, or if you spend more time in a place where there's like margin of error, 3-point difference, something like that, you might be able to swing it, especially with the get out the vote. Traditionally speaking, the Democrats have been really good with their field and ground game and getting out the vote. Really good. And so then you have to countermeasure that with this enthusiasm, energy to try to make up for that, differential. So that's sort of the key here. And they absolutely cannot take anything for granted in that regard, because the skill set, the level of play of the Democrats is very strong.
That is true. And I know Juan was glued to the rally last night, and you definitely want to weigh in on that. Are you afraid a little bit of campaign stump Trump? Does that scare you as a Democrat?
No, but I must say
it's
consistent. I mean, I thought, and I think some Republicans thought, once he gets elected, it's going to change. He's going to be more presidential. I mean, last night he's up there and he's saying, hey, so they won't toot your horn? I'll toot my own horn. It's okay. It's okay. And then he's talking about, the Democrats want open borders. That's what they want. They want people just surging across. And you think, why does he say these things? But he says it, and the audience goes ballistic. They love it. So,
I think he says it because you guys do.
But the question is, does it have impact on the midterms? By the way, I ignored that last comment. Because
there was a tape on Fox and Friends. We heard someone say it this morning.
Is that right?
Yeah, I swear.
But it seems to me the real issue here is, what is the Republican message, what is the Democratic message going into the midterms? And the big fail has been, for the Republicans, the inability to use the tax cut as the basis for the midterm elections. So I think you see President Trump then falling back on things like hot button issues, immigration, open borders, North Korea is solved, and all that kind of stuff, right? That's his message. The Democrats, on the other hand, are seeking to find a consistent message, and really better than the message has been good candidates. And I think they've found some good candidates.
There's some good candidates out there. And do you think they're going to make an impact or not?
I don't know, because I don't know any of them. I haven't been paying much attention. Hey, I still enjoy the rallies. As long as he's funny, I will always watch.
He was
and
pretty funny.
I really do think his rallies are like his gym. It's where he goes to work out, to stay fresh, to test material, and it is. I haven't quoted Scott Adams in a while, so I'm going to drink. I'm going to bring up his 2 movies from one screen theory. That when you watch Trump and you like him, you enjoy it. If you don't like Trump, you see something totally different. So it's the same movie, but it's the same screen, but you're seeing 2 different movies, and that's the way it is right now in America.
Well, you're not seeing any movies if you watch it on CNN, because I don't even think they cover the Trump rallies at all. All right, liberals asking, where is Barack Obama? While Hillary Clinton continues to lash out against President Trump. Up next.
New York Magazine now with a new cover highlighting an apparent growing concern among Democrats, quote, where is Obama? It is a question much of the country has been asking over the last 2 years, sometimes plaintively. Come back, Barack, Chance the Rapper sang in a Saturday Night Live sketch. We all miss him, Kobe Bryant said, speaking for other athletes. Even former FBI Director James Comey admitted to German interviewers this spring that he misses Obama. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton continues to reflect on her election loss by complaining about the Electoral College.
My personal experience with winning 3 million more votes, but still losing, and we will leave discussions of the American Electoral College for another day. But Monk concludes by saying, Turkey also shows that political and intellectual elites, both inside the country and around the world, persistently underestimate the threat which these kinds of leaders pose.
I mean, I love the Electoral College, but Juan, Barack Obama cannot save the Democrats. Like, they might miss him, but he cannot run for president again. They have to find a new leader. Are they just wasting their time wishing that he would come and try to fix it all for them?
Well, I think you guys often point out that it's time for Hillary Clinton to get off the stage.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
But I must say, Hillary Clinton is nowhere near as popular as Barack Obama. But there is this kind of illusory desire on the part of the left that says, oh, gosh, if Barack Obama came back on the scene, if he was taking shots at Trump, it would settle him off. You know, like if he went out, and I think someone said if he went and got arrested down at the border, that would galvanize left-wing support.
Idea I've ever heard.
I don't think that would work for Obama or for the Democrats.
I wouldn't mind seeing him locked up.
Oh, there we go. So much for civility, folks.
There goes the A block.
Yeah, what Obama has said.
Just a joke.
There's a piece out about Obama not being in play. And one of the things that they say there was that Obama is, in fact, encouraged by things like the Women's March, things like the gun control passions after Parkland down in Florida, and the tremendous rebuke the country has given on the immigration policy.
But what do you think about Hillary Clinton? She's always out there talking.
I love Hillary more than Hillary can ever know for 2 reasons. One, she's comic relief. She reminds me of the crazy aunt everyone has who sends you a letter every 2 months with disjointed notes and a check for $3. It's never cash. It's always a check. And she also reminds you of what could have been. There was a Rasmussen poll that found that 47% were glad she wasn't elected versus 40% that wish she had been. So it's not getting better for her. She's not proving any points. But the most comical part about this is that she keeps volunteering herself as the CEO for Facebook. She goes, I could be, that'd be a great company. It's CEO. It's like, but you know that if they had a job interview for her, she wouldn't bother showing up, because she would feel that she's entitled to it, just like the election. She wouldn't show up to her own job interview, which is exactly what the election was, a job interview that she failed to show up for.
So true.
What do you think about Barack Obama's decision to stay out? Or if you want to comment on Hillary, either one.
Well, let's see. A cornucopia of delightful political discussion. Well, I would say, as it relates to Barack Obama, yes, there's a lot of people out there talking about that they would like President Obama to come back in and jump into the fray. That's the type of politics, the type of politician that they like, that they would like to, frame the Democratic Party. They were doing far better, right, when he was, in charge and sort of their figurehead and the representative that was leading the charge and the forces, because the whole side, really liked him and motivated behind him. In terms of Hillary Clinton, it's like she's still super irritated and frustrated and angry over the election and the results, and she was like bad-mouthing the Electoral College. So I don't know. I mean, I think they have to get somebody new going forward, because usually it is traditionally the former president doesn't step in. But now there's such like a 911 call that they're all begging him, silent screaming inside. Oh,
yeah, and there was a report a couple weeks ago, Jesse, that over the past several months, Democratic hopefuls for 2020 have been going to see President Obama privately in his office. There's never press around it, but trying to see, will you be the one that will anoint me or help me in 2020? But I think they're going to have to just find their own way.
I'll answer the question, where is Barack Obama? He's on Richard Branson's yacht. And that's exactly where I'd be. I mean, live it up. You've done 2 terms, relax. That's fine. And I can't believe I'm going to say this in the spirit of civility, Juan. I respect the way President Obama has conducted himself since leaving office. He hasn't been crazy. He's been tempered, and he's stepped in when he needed to. And as far as Hillary, she cheated, still lost, and is still whining about it. She rigged the primary against Bernie. Oh. The media helped her.
That's really true.
The media helped her more than anybody. She paid some for Russian dirt in order to set Trump up. Comey rigged her probe, and she's whining. She's still lost.
You know what
She's lucky she was even the nominee.
I'm going to quote Scott Adams.
Well, yes. Right.
Scott Adams. The politics of 2 ideas. You're watching the same movie about Hillary Clinton. You can see it 2 different ways.
Jesse can't restrain himself.
I can't.
I will restrain him. All right. A new idea to curb your addiction to social media is gaining momentum. We're going to talk about that next on The Five.
Take you on a night ride. Windows down, sitting on my side. Tick-tock, now we're knocking on midnight. Me and you, girl, running out of moonlight.
Hey guys, put down your phones. Pay attention to this brand new study. It finds American social media addiction is on the decline, or could be. That's thanks to a lack of trust. A whopping 40% of people now claim they have deleted a social media account in the last year. That's according to public relations agency Edelman. The study also finds 62% would like to see more regulation on platforms like Facebook and Twitter. So, Jesse, there was one statistic that just blew my mind. It said, on average, the average person with a smartphone touches that phone 2,600 times a day.
Wow.
I believe it.
That's a lot.
Is that possible?
That's a lot. I think I'm a little addicted to my phone, too. I got to cut it out. And I might delete Instagram. I'm getting a little hooked on it. I think it's time for me to take a break. And I understand why people want to delete. I don't think that, I guess people are deleting their Facebook because they're being spied on, or, their privacy concerns, or, they're discriminating against conservatives. I'm not on it as much, but, I might take a little breather from some social media. I think that's a good idea over the holiday weekend.
Dana, take a look at this. This is a graphic of people 18 to 24 and their social media habits.
Wow.
80% on Facebook, 78% Snapchat, 71% Instagram, 45% Twitter. It looks like they're more locked in than anybody else.
It's interesting to me that it looks like Twitter is for the old people.
Yeah.
If that's any indication. I am a little nervous to not be on it, because I do like to keep up to speed with what's going on in the news. But I'm ready for a 1-week purge, like a test.
We should do it.
Should we do it the week of the 4th?
Let's do it.
Okay.
We'll not know what's going on in the world if they don't have Twitter, though.
Well, Kevin Williamson, the columnist, he's off Twitter, and he says he hasn't missed it. Maybe he's right.
Wait. You guys, you got to talk to Greg, will you? Just.
You know what's hilarious is I am the most negative person I know, and I find
#truth.
I find social media too negative for me.
Wow.
That is, so I have a couple of theories. Number one, crime has been on a dramatic decline, and I wonder maybe social media has moved incivility from the streets from Broadway to broadband. Maybe the reduction could be that we're all taking it out on each other in an abstract way. But the thing that I hate are the websites that post videos of confrontations and meltdowns. I saw like 5 today. There was a woman on an airplane.
I know.
I look at these things, and they're all like, you look at sites like Mediaite who just feed off the misery of other people, and they post, and I go there because it's media, and I just go, it's just like it's so sad and depressing to see mentally ill people, sad people, people having a bad day, being treated as material for clickbait, and nobody cares. And I think that's what I want to get away from.
So, in fact, Kimberly, one of the things they said, which was, again, a surprise to me, was that there's a correlation between using these devices and depression, anxiety, lack of good relationships with people face to face, and inability to understand how you negotiate a positive relationship.
Yes, I think you have to pull your happiness from within. Social media stuff doesn't really bother me. I don't know, it just never. I mean,
I know you've always had a healthy attitude about it.
People will say like crazy stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm feeling awesome, so it's okay. You know what I mean? Let them express themselves. It is what it is. But I don't really do Facebook at all anymore.
Well, I know Facebook is they're going to reach out to you, Kimberly. One more thing. It's up next for all your fun.
Going through changes.
One more thing, KG.
So I saw this today and I thought it was great, Dan. I think you'll like it too.
Okay.
I'll pause on deck. So this is a police dog that performed CPR on an officer in mock demonstration. You guys might have seen this, but it's like, okay, yes, we know you're our best friend, right? Dogs can come over and actually save your life and do CPR, which is kind of how I used to look when I was in CPR class.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. So this was in Madrid, Spain, and they taught Pancho, the police dog, the steps for performing the life-saving first aid. I think this is really cool.
That's
so this is a demonstration done for children, and he runs to the rescue after the handler collapses on the ground, and he starts chest compressions, and then he appears to check to see if the patient is breathing. Pancho keeps up the work until he finds that there's a resuscitation.
Pretty cool.
Which is very cool, and people seem to really love it. It's like 2.3 million times online it was viewed last week. And they say Pancho is the only dog in the world that will love you more than you love yourself, Greg.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Hope I don't catch anything from that dog. All right, Dana.
Okay, so over the weekend, we were down in New Jersey. There's a lake by the place where we have, and there's little tiny duck, like 6 days old, was out by itself. So it kept coming over to the people across the street saying, can you help me? That's Grace Carell. And the Carell family helped save this duck. Peter had picked it up as well. We kept taking it back to the Reeds. And then when Grace took it to go back with the other ducks, the ducks tried to drown it.
Yes.
So she plunged back into the lake and got the little duck, and she took it to Tom's River Avian Care, and now her name is Tilly, and she's got a new family.
You're not supposed to touch the ducks.
No, it was all alone, and they were trying to drown it.
Now they don't like the duck because it's been touched by humans.
I think all of the family died.
I think the person touching the duck should be arrested.
No, well, that would be Peter.
All right, Peter, it should be under arrest, house arrest.
I think the Carells are an amazing family and huge fans.
One.
By the way.
Yes, very nice family, and it teaches you to like get involved. Just don't go.
Have the poor duck be hated. One.
What?
Well, you know, sometimes you can't believe your eyes. Watch this. Yes, that's a human being holding on to the hood of a Mercedes-Benz C300 traveling 70 miles an hour down Florida's I-95 on Sunday. The man is holding on with one hand, apparently holding a cell phone with the other hand. The man who made this video, Dan Midas, said the guy